everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are going to be ranking Holo Taco's collections from 2024. You might remember last year, or actually I think earlier at the beginning of this year, I created this little brand recap mini series to sort of revisit all of the collections that the brands have put out throughout the year, because there usually are a lot of them, and so it's fun to just look back on what was released and talk about them. But to even make it more fun, at least for me, I like to rank the collections using a tier list. So a tier list, if you don't know, has a ranking usually from S through F, where S is like perfection, there's no notes, and F is like really bad, just the complete opposite. And obviously with a lot of nail polish releases, I personally like the majority of them, so I don't think there are any that are that bad that they deserve to be in the F tier. So my personal lowest is gonna go down to D. Obviously this is just going off of my own personal tastes and preferences, and I'm gonna be ranking the collections based off of their themes, the variety of their finishes and colors, but I will also talk about some criticisms that I have or that I've seen other people share, just to, you know, do a proper brand recap. So I will save more of my thoughts for the end. For now, let me show you my tier list. Okay, so here is the look at my tier list, and again, I have it going from S through D, since personally I don't think Holo Taco has put out a collection that deserves to be in the F tier. I did also decide to rename the tiers just because I thought it would be a little bit more fun that way too, but I am calling the S tier Flawless, no notes, because it's pretty much perfect. For A tier, we have The Vibes Are Immaculate, where, I mean, as it sounds, it is a pretty solid collection. There's just something keeping it from being perfect in my opinion, but it's definitely a really, really good collection. Then for B, I have These Were Nice, with that one smile emoji, because I feel like it is just the perfect like neutral kind of option where, you know, maybe it leans towards positive because they're nice, but they're not anything super special or like exciting. Then for the C tier, we have Smile and Nod, where these are obviously reserved for collections that just weren't for me. I can acknowledge that, you know, other people like them, but I just didn't really care for them. And lastly, for D, I have Boring, Yawning, which I know might sound mean at first, but it's coming from like this meme audio, which I just think is so funny.
Boring, yawning, sloppy, lazy.
And I feel like it's perfect to represent like the very bottom tier, but, you know, without being like mean, because I don't really think a lot of collections are boring necessarily, but maybe you think otherwise. And so I hope that you join me in the comments below with ranking the collections, because I definitely would love to hear, even if you didn't pick up all of the collections, you can still, you know, share your opinions on them. So Holo Taco released 9 collections during the year, which is definitely a lot, but not as much as the year before, where I'm pretty sure they had a release like every single month. So it still was kind of overwhelming to get so many releases from them. But in January, we actually didn't get a new release at all. Instead, we kind of got negative polishes, because in January is when Christine does her sales data stream, going over the top and bottom sellers from Holo Taco, and also talks about the polishes that are going to be retired. I'm pretty sure this year there were 10 polishes that were being retired, and some of them I think were definitely very expected, like Trophy Life or Queen's Curse, but there were others that I was so gutted over. The main one, which maybe isn't a surprise, like if you follow me and you know my taste, but the main one was Fairy Tale, which was the brown magnetic. I know this sounds dramatic, but I actually gasped when I was watching the stream and I saw Fairy Tale in that collage. It is easily one of my favorite magnetics from Holo Taco. I've shared it so many times on my channel for different like favorites videos, and it was just so sad to see that one go. I believe it was for like low sales, while others were retired more for like quality issues issues, like Fake Date, for example, was another really sad one, but with the frosted metal formula being so unstable and tarnishing, I'm not surprised that that one had to get retired. Another really sad one was Frostlight, which was the icy blue glitter. I don't even want to get started on the glitters being retired because those were definitely like my top favorite finish from Holo Taco. So yeah, as exciting as a new year tends to be, it was kind of a bummer to see some of these shades go. And that means that we are around the corner from seeing this sales data stream for 2024. So I'm really, I don't want to say anxious, but almost like nervous a little bit to see what is going to be retired for next year. I heard this year they're going to be retiring more than 10 polishes. So I'm almost like nervous to see what those are. Let me know if you have any guesses on what they could be, or if you plan on getting any backups. Because personally, even though last year I did grab a backup of Fairy Tale, I can't really think of a shade right now that I would like want a backup of if I knew it was going to be retired. But obviously that's going to be a lot easier once I like see the collage of what's being retired. So getting into the actual releases, we had the first one in February with the I Need Space collection. And I am probably going to be in the minority, but I actually really liked this collection. It obviously has this like space theme, but more of a Mars focus, which I really appreciated because we just have seen space and galaxy kind of collections over and over again. Granted, they are always like really cool, but you know, it can just be so redundant. So I really loved the direction that Holo Taco went with this collection. I thought it was just so much more creative. I thought the lineup of shades was really well put together. The range of like finishes and colors. Obviously my top favorite being I'm Rover It. I've shared that a few times on my channel, and just like that finish in general, I think is so stunning, and I would love to see more of it. So it might sound like I would put this in the S tier where it's like flawless, no notes, but I have notes, and it's for Solo Mission. I'm sorry to say, but I just do not like this polish at all. I just find it so unflattering, to put it nicely. And it is a shame because I feel like I usually do love these like iridescent flakies in these like jelly crelly kind of bases. For this one, I think it really is like the color combination that just was not for me. Like that polish alone, I would put in the D tier, maybe even an F tier. So because that one is just so low for me, it's just bringing down the collection, unfortunately, from an S to an A tier. Even though I'm not really ranking the collection boxes, I unfortunately also want to mention that I don't like the collection box for this collection because it just looks like marbled steak. I really wish they went with like a different texture, or maybe just like a deeper, more earthy red color. That's just kind of being nitpicky. Other than that, I think this was a really beautiful collection. Next, in the month of March, we got the Cookies and Cremes bundle. And this was another one that I did really enjoy, but I think it was like mainly the marketing. I want to say this consisted of like 6 cream polishes. We had Milky White Shimmer and a black flaky taco. So because the majority of these finishes were creams, I can see it, you know, not being super exciting, but I do love like a good cream formula, and the pastels in this one specifically were really well formulated. Obviously, I also loved Perisocial because I'm a big periwinkle lover, and even the 2 like browns I'm obsessed with. I remember not loving Milky White Shimmer because the formula just wasn't really there for me. I feel like Holo Taco's white kind of shimmery polishes are kind of hit or miss, where that one and then a future one weren't my favorites, but then I had really great experience with like the more recent white shimmers that they've released. So I feel like it's kind of hard to say whether it's just like my own personal application where, you know, it's just a weird day and it's just not applying well. I actually am wearing Milky White Shimmer now on my middle fingers, and I also do have shorter nails than when I originally swatched this. So, you know, I feel like the application experience was better this time on shorter nails. So it's one of those shades that like I want to love it, but but I kind of just like it. I also did really love the Black Flake Taco, which is so weird because I'm not usually a fan of like black speckled flakies, but I loved that that one had these like larger irregular shredded pieces, especially layered over a white like Milky White Shimmer. It just was instant cookies and cream vibes, which is like one of my favorite ice cream flavors. So while I personally think the vibes are immaculate for this bundle, I also feel like there is a bit of a missed opportunity not having like more toppers, mainly because I remember seeing a comment on my review video for this bundle that was like, why didn't Holo Taco do a rainbow sort of glitter topper to kind of serve as sprinkles, since, you know, there's this whole ice cream theme going on? And my mind was blown. I was like, oh my God, that is like such a missed opportunity. It's honestly so sad to think about that like could have worked so well with the collection, and it just would have been another fun topper. So again, while I did really enjoy these, I think it's fair to put them in these were nice. Then in the month of April, we got the Shimmering Secrets collection, which was basically our second annual Holo royalty release. And this year it was a quad. Last year it was a little trio. So it was nice to get an extra polish, but unfortunately, I am gonna put this one in the smile and nod tier. I know a lot of people obviously really love this, but the only like real standout for me in that release was Spyglass. It is just super beautiful. I know a lot of people already don't love the crushed Holo formula, and Spyglass did feature this beautiful shimmer, which we'll get into in the next collection, but I feel like a lot of people also really love that shade, so I just wish I loved the other shades even more. Then in the month of May, we got the Rock Candy collection, and this was a rainbow lineup of that crushed Holo formula that also included shimmer. So similar to Spyglass, but not really, because I personally feel like Spyglass was a lot more glowy. I definitely was looking forward to this collection because I'm a fan of crushed Holos, I'm a fan of rainbows, so this seemed like it was gonna be the top collection for me so far at least. But I remember kind of having some mixed feelings about them, where the polishes themselves were nice. I think the biggest problem was when it came time to compare how these polishes looked to others on the market, and you can really tell how underwhelming, or at the very least how subtle, the shimmer was in Holo Taco. Obviously this goes back to personal preference. I really love shimmery polishes, and I love the shimmers to like be obnoxious and super glowy, but I feel like the shimmers in these just sort of fell flat. Like they were just really subtle and hard to find. I'm not sure if it's because they were like contrasting colors to the bases, while Spyglass had a blue shimmer against a blue base, so that kind of took it away from me a little bit. But I definitely still really liked this collection once I like stopped comparing them. And again, I feel like that's putting me in the minority here because I know so many people like hate this finish. I originally was gonna put them in the B tier, but I feel like saying these were nice is almost too neutral, if that makes sense. So I think I am gonna put them in A and say the vibes were immaculate. Definitely behind the I Need Space collection. I think the stronger shimmers would have put them in the S tier, but I also would have loved to see like a slightly different shade of yellow, because I just didn't love the yellow shade that was in this lineup. So basically I have notes, and that's why it's not gonna be in the flawless S tier. So we didn't get a release in June, but then in July we celebrated Holo Taco's 5th anniversary with their Mixed Emotions collection. This collection featured 5 thermal polishes, which were a brand new finish to Holo Taco. I remember I don't want to say controversy, but maybe like the scandal of them releasing thermals in the middle of summer, because thermals, if you don't know, are temperature sensitive pigments, and the main disclaimer with thermals is that they will die. They will stop transitioning at some point. It doesn't mean that you can't continue to use the nail polish. Like nail polish these days can technically last forever, but the very specific special effect in these polishes won't last forever, so they have a much shorter shelf life compared to any other polish like on the market. And a lot of other indie brands that sell thermals actually stop selling them during the summer months because there's just a risk that shipping in higher temperatures can just sort of like kill the thermal pigment. I remember even slightly having an issue with one of my polishes where I feel like getting it in the bottle, it just already looked like it was in the middle state while the other colors were definitely in the cold state. So it just really sucked, you know, to deal with the timing. I feel like if they were able to do thermals as a limited edition release earlier, like in the early summer, maybe even late spring, but obviously it was for their anniversary, which, you know, they can't just change the date of their anniversary, so it just sucked timing wise. But for the actual polishes, I thought they were nice. Like, they had some pretty color combinations, some that I have seen before, others that I haven't, and I really appreciated that. Even though I definitely have talked about like not personally buying thermals because I mean, my collection personally is just too large to justify buying thermal polishes. I feel like not putting them in Smile and Nod just isn't really fair to them. I feel like it's just one of those weird collections that can kind of live in between the B and C tier for me, but generally I thought they were nice. We got another break from releases in August, but then we were back at it in September with the Dark Academia collection. This one I thought was really cool because I appreciated that they had like 2 separate bundles for the collection. I know bigger collections in general are maybe not for everybody, but I think it's just nice having the option to get like half of them. I believe it was the undergrad bundle that had like the creams and the one new Crelly jelly finish, while the grad school bundle had the more specialty finishes. And overall, I really like them. I was honestly surprised with some of them. Like Secret Society is one of those polishes that I normally would be like, I'm not really interested in it, but then trying it on, I'm like, whoa, this is freaking gorgeous. I loved the Dark Academia vibe for this collection, and especially being released in September when it's like back to school season. It just was so fitting. So I think I'm gonna put these in the Vibes Are Immaculate, in between the I Need Space collection and the Rock Candy collection, mainly because I do appreciate the more varied finishes in Dark Academia, while Rock Candy was like all the same finish, just in different colors. Though I know not everybody loved having like so many creams in that release, I still thought the creams were really good. Ivory Tower and Headhunter are definitely like my top 2 favorites from that release, but again, even the specialty finishes were super stunning. I would say my biggest gripes are regarding the, not even the formulas or the finishes, but the description of some of them, which is such a pet peeve kind of thing, but those are my notes. Starting with Devil's Advocate, where it is described as a Crelly, and I can definitely see that, especially on the first coat, but I just wished it was like a little bit thinner or just more of a true jelly finish, because once you do that second coat, it just kind of looks like any other oxblood red cream. I wish it wasn't like that. I wish that the jelly finish was still there so you can get that really squishy, like semi-translucent kind of look, but that one is just a little too opaque for me personally. And if anything, the more frustrating one for me is with Silent Library, because don't get me wrong, I think it is beautiful. Like, I love the shade of blue. I love the little flakies. My biggest pet peeve with it is that they're describing it as a frosted metal when it looks nothing like the original frosted metal formula. I don't know if it's like a marketing thing. I'm pretty sure I haven't seen anybody like address the fact that it just looks so different, but that just annoys me. Like, are we really not gonna talk about it? If this is supposed to be the new frosted metal finish, okay, cool. You know, I mean, it's not anywhere near as like foily or metallic looking, but it's just weird to me to call a polish by the same kind of description when it doesn't look anything like it, you know? Then in October, for Christine's birthday, she released the Birthstone collection. This was by far their biggest release to date because it had 12 polishes, obviously all inspired by Birthstones in a range of beautiful finishes and colors. I know the launch was definitely very hectic because it sold out like within hours. Thankfully, they did bring back all of the shades recently during the 12 days of Christmas, and I believe the majority of them are still available. But aside from, you know, them selling out like crazy and the potential like FOMO aspect, I absolutely loved this collection. I thought they were so freaking gorgeous. I'm a sucker for birthstones. If you follow my birth month series, you know that I always share a couple of birthstone inspired polishes. I think it's just so fun, and this really nailed it for me. So even though I do have some notes on the release or like the specific shades, I think it does deserve to be in the S tier for me because it is just like the best collection that they put out this year, in my opinion. I just loved the range of shades. I don't know if it's because it was the biggest collection because it just allowed for so many different formulas and finishes, but I just really loved seeing that. I personally wasn't that upset over not getting an opal polish since I didn't really love the specialty white finishes that were released so far. Like, I really had the thought that if they came out with an opal polish, I probably wouldn't have liked it. So I'm really happy that they came out with the pink tourmaline option with Birthday Brat because it is gorgeous. I do still feel a bit bad though for the November babies because Topaz Tears is like my least favorite from the lineup, but I think it's still a really unique and gorgeous shade. I just didn't love it for the Topaz Birthstone, if that makes sense. Like, it just seemed a little too out there for me. Like, it could have been in a different collection. The only other thing that really sucks about them is that they are limited edition, as are all the birthday releases. So, you know, I understand that part does suck, but the shades themselves are super stunning. Then in November, we had the Underglow collection, which, if you remember my review, I definitely was a very, very big fan of them. They were these 6 polishes that had these shimmer, crelly kind of formulas, some with a dainty hollow sparkle, but others were just shimmers. And I just love that kind of finish. I thought the colors themselves were super gorgeous. I'm pretty sure I talked about it in that video, but earlier in the year, I had done a Skittle with like basically the same kind of color palette, but it was very like fairy inspired. And so seeing this collection, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so stunning. Which makes sense because I already wore something so similar to it, but I never would have thought of wearing those shades for like winter. So it just was so refreshing in a way for me. Now, I know not everybody loved this release, and that's fine. Other people might put this in smile and nod or even boring, yawning. I get it, but I'm honestly torn between putting them in the Vibes Are Immaculate because they are, and Flawless No Notes because I don't have that many notes. I guess in the general sense, the notes are, you know, the formulas are not the best. People had issues with them like self-leveling and just not looking very even coverage. I guess I can also say that the shimmers in the Underglow collection were on the more subtle side, kind of similar to how I felt about the Rock Candy collection, but because there wasn't like as much Holo competing, I think the subtle shimmer just like worked better in Underglow than it did in Rock Candy. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, I think I am gonna put Underglow in the Vibes Are Immaculate, behind I Need Space, in front of Dark Academia. Oh, but you know, maybe I should put them in front of I Need Space because I feel like it's just one of those collections, color palettes that I would end up wearing more often. Yeah, actually that sounds right. Putting Underglow at the top of A tier. And then lastly, in December, we got the Declassified's 002 set, where if you weren't around last year following Holo Taco, that was when they first released their Declassified collection that basically were these like almost rejected prototypes from previous releases, but they were like, you know what, let's actually put a couple of them together and just release them as a little collection. This year we only got 4 of them, And, you know, not to get too repetitive since I feel like I just did my video for these, but I kind of had like mixed feelings where like the polishes themselves were nice, like not bad quality by any means. I love like the shimmer and the sparkles in them. My biggest gripe with the release were the prototypes that they went with, where they just seemed like so much more recent. I mean, 2 of them were from the very previous collection that we were just talking about, and I saw someone, I'm pretty sure on Reddit, say that the Declassifieds were basically like the DLC for the Underglow collection, or like an expansion pack or something, and it's just so accurate. Like, I just don't know why they did that so soon after. I personally would have loved to see different prototypes that were like from older releases, because I'm pretty sure for the very first Declassified collection, they mentioned Rose Gold Taco was supposed to be released back when like the tea creams came out, which was like 2 years beforehand, and they just like, you know, never had a spot to release that taco until now. So I kind of was expecting like one of the shades to be kind of along those lines, if that makes sense. But I guess looking back on like the earlier releases, maybe it would have been harder to get prototypes for those, because it's not like they're gonna give us a prototype for another thermal. The Royalty Quad is limited edition and the Declassifieds are supposed to be seasonal, so you know there's like gonna be a conflict with their availability or whatever. I guess the earlier releases would have been from I Need Space or the Cookies and Cremes bundle, and the Cookies and Cremes are like all creams, so you know that wouldn't be exciting to see just another cream, but maybe that's where we could have gotten like a different topper or something. But I think the I Need Space was the only other release that like could have given us some other prototypes. I don't know, I just didn't love the selection that we got, but the polishes themselves were like nice. I feel like I was originally gonna put this in the D tier, but I don't think they're boring, so I think I'm gonna put them in the C tier for Smile and Nod, but I'm gonna put them ahead of the Holo Royalty release just because I think I liked the polishes more in the Declassified set. So here is my completed tier list. In the S tier, I have the Birthstone collection because I think that they are flawless with minimal notes. Then I thought 4 collections deserve to be in the A tier because I thought the vibes were immaculate. They, in order, are the Underglow collection, I Need Space, Dark Academia, and the Rock Candy collection. Then I have 2 releases for the B tier, the Cookies and Crumbs bundle and the Mixed Emotions anniversary collection because I thought they were nice. And lastly, for the C tier, I have the Declassified 002 set and the Shimmering Secrets Holo Royalty Quad because I don't have that much to say about them, so I'm just gonna smile and nod. So that wraps up my brand recap and collection tier list for Holo Taco. As always, I can't wait to hear what you think of my ranking. I hope that you were joining along in the comments because I would love to know how these releases ranked for you throughout the year. I definitely would love to know whether you agree or disagree with my rankings. And as a reminder, this is just going off of my own personal tastes and preferences. But I feel like in general, I definitely did rank a lot of the releases like on the higher end because I generally did like a lot of their releases this year, and I think that puts me in the minority because at least from what I remember, like, you know, seeing the comments and the general consensus of, you know, people talking about the releases, a lot of people seem to like not love what Holo Taco has done, like especially this past year, saying that the collections are like misses or just like not creative. And I kind of don't agree with that, which I think is so interesting to see. And obviously I'm not like a Holo Taco stan by any means. And for a while, especially like in their earlier years, I really wasn't interested in a lot of what they were putting out because I personally feel like they were stuck doing the same color palette, but just in in different finishes. And so that seemed really boring to me, but then only in the past like year or two did they start doing these different, like more varied finishes across their releases. That I think is just so much more exciting. The only downside is that I feel like they've put out so many different kinds of finishes, but they haven't really gone back to revisit the popular ones. Or I guess like I would just say that because going back to the retro anniversary collection from last summer, those were the Holo jellies that I personally am a big fan of, but they just haven't really released more of that. I know I've mentioned this several times in different like Holo Taco videos that I am a fan of their crushed Holos, and I would love to see these like darker jewel tone ones. And the closest that we got to that was going solo from the Declassified set, but that was like a black base with a blue shimmer. I'm talking like a dark green base with a green shimmer or whatever, or even a finish like I'm Rover It, which I think maybe is close to Bottle Service from last year's After Midnight collection. That's another finish that I absolutely love and would love to see more of, but it's like we just get these finishes so few and far between. And I know a lot of people have also been really critical of them releasing so many shimmers this year. Obviously, as a shimmer lover, I'm not too upset at it, other than the fact that I feel like their shimmers are just subtle and don't stand out as much compared to others that are on the market. But yeah, overall, I feel like this was a pretty good year for Holo Taco, at least for my personal taste. So I'd love to know what you think down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!